had a nice long weekend, and we have another Tuesday discussion today. My name is Gesa Lüdicke, and I'm the director of the graduate programs here at the Rachel Carson Center. And together with Professor Dr. Christoph Maus, the director of the Rachel Carson Center, I'm moderating the Tuesday discussion, and today it's my turn. And I'm very delighted that we could win Professor Dr. Matthias Drösler for our session today. He came all the way from Weihenstephan-Triesdorf. For those of you who don't know where this is, it's located in the north of Munich, near Freising. Well, actually, it is Freising.
It is Freising.
I don't know how long it takes you to get here, maybe like
half an hour, so it's
hour?
not too far away.
All right. He works at the University of Applied Sciences in Weihenstephan-Triesdorf, and he is professor there for vegetation ecology. And I have to admit, I've never been to the campus. I have to go there, and now we just talked about it, that we have the €9 ticket. We maybe should go all together, because what I learned from students is that the campus is just a beautiful place. It has lots of green spaces. It has cows and gardens. I think you also have a forest. The university owns a forest. Right. And you have lots of test areas for growing crops. Mm-hmm. So a beautiful place with new buildings, old buildings, very old buildings. Mm-hmm. So definitely something which is worth worth visiting.
And the oldest brewery of the world.
And the oldest brewery of the world, of course. That should round up a perfect visiting day there.
Okay.
So actually a wonderful place to study and to do research there. So, as I mentioned already, you have the chair for vegetation ecology. You're also the head of the Institute for Ecology and Landscape at the University of Weihenstephan-Triesdorf. And Matthias' main focus is the research on peatlands, especially in Bavaria, which I think are just the tiny little patches are left from what was all actually owned or used to be peatland in Bavaria. Matthias studied landscape ecology at the Technical University and did research in and out of Germany on various ecosystems, but eventually came back to Bavaria to study peatlands. And he's been doing this for almost, or maybe even more than 20 years.
Yes.
What I think, or what I've read. Mm-hmm. And Matthias has become one of the peatland experts, not only in Bavaria, maybe not only in Germany, but maybe also in the world, because he has been working on this for so long and has a lot of EU-funded projects going on for the rewetting of peatlands. And he has several high-ranking memberships. One of them is being a member of the Nature Conservation Advisory Board at the Bavarian Ministry. You've been coordinating lead author for the IPCC report on the chapter 2, which was, I think, the wetland supplement.
Right.
And Matthias was best researcher of the University of Applied Sciences in Weihenstephan-Triesdorf of 2020. And you have been involved, and this is incredibly exciting because we're starting a new master as well, that you actually developed a master. I think you're also the study dean.
Yep.
The master is called Climate Change Management. And it's for students who are interested in looking for solutions in terms of climate change, climate mitigation, climate adaptation. The interesting part why we invited you is that we're so interested in learning about peatlands, especially because you're working on something called paludiculture, which is a method, you're going to talk about that, I guess, in more detail in a couple of minutes, how to rewet peatlands that used to be peatlands and are not any longer, and how these new peatlands can actually go hand in hand with agriculture. This is a totally new approach, and maybe an approach that we definitely need for the future. So we're really excited that you're here with us today, and everyone please join me in welcoming Matthias Drösler.
Thanks for this nice invitation and the long list of presentation in beforehand. So it's just a matter of fact, if you are long-term in such a topic, then you accumulate somehow the positions. It's not really the honor, so it's just the accumulation of positions. Yeah. So let's start and try to follow me in that presentation. I'm sorry for having it in German, but anyway, I think it will work. I guide you a bit through that presentation. So this is an order to say something about what do we know about, what should we do. So that's this müssen. What are we able to do already to do a good management of peatland? What are synergies? How to finance change of land use? And finally, what is our activity to make peatlands better? But first of all, I would like to stress the peatland development. And as far as I understand, not all of you are biologists from the background. Is it correct? So it's more the...
I think no
biologist.
No biologist. Yeah. So the background is more philosophy or, yeah. So if you look to that from a physiological point of view, you see there's a time axis in. And time axis for us are always important to understand on something, like to measure them with our clock, with something like dating. If we go and look to the peatland development, then we have really a nice time axis in front of us. The development of peatlands started in our region, everywhere where we have had a glacial time. So this glacial time 12,000 years ago, with areas, depressions in the landscape where water was in the surplus. So the start of a peatland, peat as a product from the plants, is always depending on a surplus of water in the landscape. That's the key issue. So I need water in the landscape to create a peatland. Why? Because once my plant grows on the surface, there's a decay, the leaves die, the roots die, and then they come underwater. And the decomposition below the water level is much slower than the growth on the top. So the leaves on the top of a living plant grow much faster than the decomposition of the dead leaves below the water table. This is the principle of peat formation. And for that reason, organic substance accumulates. And this can grow, what you see here, till a depth of a peatland of 10 meters, 15 meters, in the tropics even 25 meters. So here in our region, close to the Alps, we have maximum depths of about 10 meters or so, yeah, originally. And this is then the time axis of the development of peatlands. The starting point is always, as I told you, the depression and the water surplus coming from water which is filling the landscape. And after a certain time, and if we have enough rainwater, if we are in a positive climatic balance, then something very special starts. Plants are growing out of the groundwater level. Specific plants are able to do that and just use the rainwater as a water surplus. And this has a really interesting effect, which means that the shape of my peatland is going upwards. And in that upper peat, we have just the nutrients which are coming from the rain. So in the lower peat here, the so-called fen peatlands, there's the surplus of nutrients from the groundwater. In the upper part here, we have the surplus of nutrients just from the rainwater. And for that reason, these are nutrient-poor peatlands. And from the terminology called bogs, maybe you've heard the term bogs. So bogs are rain-fed and fens are groundwater-fed. So that's a really important difference for all land uses which are coming behind. And then I would like, as you are always looking about development of society maybe as well, and try to understand the development of political systems or anything. So I would like to ask you, what should we place here as a time? So because this time marks the start of using the peatlands. So using means I drain them, I make a channel and I get rid of the water to make use of the peatland. What would you say, when did this start here in Middle Europe or so? Any idea?
19th century.
Pardon?
19th century.
Bit earlier?
Middle Age.
late Middle Age, 1700, 1750. So that is more or less. But it tells us, if we look to the development of our society here and of the settlements, that this is the ecosystem which was the latest one to be in use. So, and just simply because we had a growth of population in that period, and it was difficult to get rid of that water. So that was the ecosystem most resistant against colonization, I would say. So this is then this 1700 or 1750 here, what is done here. You have specific plants. I don't know if anybody of you have seen this plant already. So it's a very tiny one. You have seen it where?
In the Peatland in my village.
And where is your village?
Switzerland.
In Switzerland, okay. So this is a very specific plant, and this plant captures flies. Because in the nutrient-poor ecosystem, it's always a scarcity of nutrients, yeah. And then some of the plants are clever and say, okay, I take my nutrients from the air, from the flies, yeah. So and I attract them, and then there's a glue on the air, and then they close the leaf and start to eat the fly. Why do we look to the peatlands from a climate point of view? So that's somehow here. So you have peatlands over the globe. You see here more or less the distribution over the globe. But you see not just a map, you see something about the content of carbon. And this is really an issue which is at the moment extremely important from 2 points of view. So the peatlands offered the society, offered us globally a service, an ecological service to take up that carbon from the atmosphere. So 550 petagram carbon stocks, this is 10 times 15. Half of the carbon dioxide, this reflects half of the content of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere on just 3% of the global surface. So the point is that peatlands accumulate a lot of carbon on a small surface. And that makes them good on the one hand in the term of ecological service, taking up of carbon or storing carbon. And the other thing is that this is really critical to be emitted, yeah? So and lost to the atmosphere. Okay, that's another type of plants growing there. So specific mosses, sphagnum mosses, which are able to grow towards the rain and don't need a lot of nutrients. So these are responsible for these bog peatlands to grow up. And then let's have a look. So that means carbon stock in global ecosystems. Let's have a look to the comparison between different ecosystems globally. And I think we have always to have the global picture and then come down to where we take action at the local level. So this global picture tells you something maybe interesting and new for you. This is the carbon stock here in tropical rainforest. So the 2/3 are above ground in the trees and 1/3 is in the roots and in the soil. But if you count that and extrapolate it here, you see that the peatlands have even more carbon in absolute numbers as the whole tropical rainforest. So for that reason as well, not just in the relationship, but in absolute numbers, peatlands are extremely important. If we look to a European distribution, then you see, well, it is, as I told you before, we need always extra rain or high humidity or positive climatic water balance, and then you see a clear distribution towards north with more coverage of the area with peatlands. We are more or less here, so there's a small patch of peatland in Bavaria in comparison to what we see at the European scale and globally. Okay, so I have to go bit faster and skip some things because, well, it is 80 slides and I have 10 minutes already used. No, I just want to show you something which links a lot to the service. So if we think big and globally, this is our picture of our emissions, coming almost 90% from fossil emissions and 11% from cutting tropical forest. That's mainly tropical forest problem and burning it. So this is 100% of the sources. And then we look to the sinks. Where does this carbon dioxide go to? And you see 48% end up in the atmosphere. This is what we see as a rising concentration over the year or every year. This is the half of our emissions. And the other half is stored in sinks, like forests and peatlands, that's this picture, and the ocean. Maybe you have known that in beforehand, but not in the relationship, I think. So this is extremely important to consider that we at the moment really live from extra service of our ecosystems, the oceans and the biosphere. If they would not do the job, then we would end up here with 100% in the atmosphere and our climate warming would be much faster as it is at the moment. So for that reason we have really to look at this picture here and say thanks to forests and peatlands we are not there where we would end up if everything of these emissions go to the atmosphere and stay there. Something about behavior. You see emissions here over the years, and then you remember the COVID-19, decreasing society, movement, everything, so our economy went down, and this is then a reduction of the yearly emissions. So this is global fossil carbon dioxide emissions per year. But after that, the recovering of the economy is really seen already in the emissions again. So I don't know if this is really a positive sign here, but this is as well a background, because if we look to the peatland, then we always think, what can we do? How can we help out? What is the need for making the society more climate friendly? And we have, I think, 3 pillars. So the first thing is reducing our energy consumption, changing the energy sources, so going from fossil to renewable, and then there will be a rest which cannot be avoided. And for this third column or third pillar, there we need our biological things here and try to strengthen them so that they do their work better or more intensive in the future, right? So that is, I think, at that stage the main message. What I just go fast through and tell you something about what is happening in a peatland now. Yeah, so we have 3 gases which are important for climate reasons. So that's methane, nitrous oxide, and carbon dioxide. Maybe you know that as well. So that we have these 3 gases which are in exchange with the ecosystems. Specifically in peatlands, we have the behavior that if I have a natural condition with the water table close to the surface, then there is an uptake of carbon dioxide to the system. Then the peatland is growing. If I drain my peatland for agricultural purposes, for example, then this column here is aerated, so oxygen is going in, and then the decomposition here is 10 times faster than here. And there's no plant taking up carbon dioxide and moving it to the peat column onto the surface. So for that reason we see schematically the 2 classical situations. This is the natural one and this is the drained and land use one. What we can do is, I go through, this is helpful. We modeled from my institute the emissions of Bavarian peatlands. So these values which are used from politics are coming from my institute. And here you see the emission So the colors are like a red light here, from green to red, with tons per square meter in CO2 equivalent per hectare. Sorry, and here is a bulk emission, overall emission. And if we stratify that according to the overall emissions of Bavaria, so maybe you have heard Bavaria is around 80 million tons, and this 5.4 is around 6 to 7% of the fossil emissions of Bavaria, just coming from these small peatland patches. So it's really as well for us an important topic. So let's just look at it. What can we do? And so we should manage the water table in the peatland. This is something of techniques to keep the water in, not to drain it. So that is one extremely important thing, to manage the water table in the peatland. That is key for everything, because then you can somehow organize that the water table is close to the surface, carbon stays in the system, and on the top you can grow something which helps you out in terms of carbon dioxide uptake. We need to establish specific plants herein, and these specific plants here are those who build the peat up. So we use exactly the plants which are responsible for the growth of the peatland over thousands of years, and use them on top for new purposes. Yeah? And that's exactly what you meant before with paludicultures, with wet agriculture in a peatland. You establish a plant composition there which is able to grow under this completely wet situation, and then allows you to make profit out of it. That is then the idea that farmers can gain money with it and save the climate. So I would say I just go very fast and show you just this final slide. We have a lot of slides in, but this final slide for me is important because all what we are doing is not able to be done from one person. So that's my team here, and it is even bigger as in that picture. Soon we have a new title as an umbrella of the team, that is Peatland Science Center. The ministry, the government of Bavaria funded us with a considerable amount of money to build up a think tank, let's say, for peatlands. That's the evolution of my team, and our position is to give advice to policymakers, as well to farmers, as well to other scientists which we cooperate with. And I'm always happy to have the chance to give my knowledge to people who would like to know something about it, or even may ask about the background and help to push that topic. Thank you very much at that position.
Thank you.